Do you know we haven't actually done an episode about a nostalgic laced movie in a while?
Yeah. We've done a lot of new movies.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say that Jurassic Park is relevant.
That's true.
But the Jurassic Park episode only came about because of Jurassic World Dominion.
Right. It's not as like we're watching The Shadow or something. Oh, we should do The Shadow.
We should do The Shadow.
We should do The Shadow.
We should do The Shadow. We should do The Mask of Zorro. That's also very very nostalgic for us.
I have like, oh my god,
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids as well. I've got a massive list. I mean, we could be here till 2025.
That's all
with that
right.
list.
I thought we'd give the listeners a bit of nostalgia up the veins. Up the veins?
Up the veins.
In the veins.
In the veins, yeah.
This is going well. So we can sort of talk a little bit about like what movies have you seen recently that sort of awokened the nostalgic thing in your brain box.
Right.
Words.
In the last episode, if anybody remembers, I received the Indiana Jones trilogy / quadrilogy, or depending wherever you're holding, with regards to Crystal Skull.
Holding it in the fucking garbage.
Well, I don't know. We'll talk about this in depth when we do 4 separate Indiana Jones episodes.
Hear that,
it's going to be
when?
epic. Yes, when. But Crystal Skull didn't annoy me as much as it usually does this time around, and I think it might just be ripe for a fan edit or something like that could take out some of the... I think there are a lot of movies, including Jurassic World Dominion, by the way, that if you cut out a bunch of annoying things, it might make them
make more sense.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on today, because I have some thoughts about the movie that we're reviewing today, which is The Black Phone. That also I would cut out some of the stuff to make a better movie, but anyway, we'll get there. So nostalgia feels. So I said I got the 4K Ultra HD 4-movie set of Indiana Jones, and when watching the first 3, nostalgia feels all up the wazoo.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Especially Raiders, but not less Temple of Doom and Last Crusade. I just think that those 3 movies are incredible, and there's so much to talk about with them, and we will talk about them in later episodes.
Well, I actually rewatched. It's not really nostalgia because it's not really a movie from the 80s or anything. Like, it doesn't really have to be, I suppose.
No, you could be nostalgic for something you saw a year ago.
Well, I rewatched Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, which I've only really seen it once or twice.
Half-Blood Prince was what, 2005?
No,
2009. I'm not that far off. It's 4 years, but still.
Yeah.
It was quite a long time ago. I mean, we were talking about Drag Me to Hell a couple of episodes ago.
That was 2005.
And that was 2009. And
Okay.
we have like a nostalgic connection to it. We are talking about something like... how long ago? Like 13 years ago or something. You know,
oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing: is that I'm rereading the books now. I haven't reread the books in a long time, and I don't want to go into any political stuff, about the author and all that. Because
I think that's relevant to me.
I think it's not relevant, but a lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't read the books because scapegoat, whatever.
Why? Does it mean that every time you open the book, does she get like an influx of dollars or something like that?
I don't know. I think she gets owls delivering her, hundreds of pounds. But my point is,
she probably got
that,
a couple of howlers for those tweets, to be honest.
Whatever you feel about the author, the books are still incredible. And Shosh got me these, beautiful illustrated editions of 3 and 4. So I'm reading 4 now, and it just elevates it to such a to have these really, really lovely painted and also very accurate to the descriptions.
Right.
These paintings. So then I went back to watch the 6th one. Because it was the one that I've seen the least, and I actually remember enjoying it more. Now that I've sort of let go of the whole it's nothing like the books. Just enjoying it for the visuals and the just seeing the world and hearing the music is great. Yeah. So that kind of gave me a bit of a nostalgia kick, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm actually just enjoying reading the books is giving me a lot of nostalgia.
Also, when watching a movie that you've never seen before, that might be from a time that holds a certain amount of nostalgia for you, like, for example, we've talked about this a lot, but we haven't actually done the episode yet, Monster Squad.
Yeah,
you watch something like Monster Squad. It's very much rooted in the 80s, or you watch a movie that's very much rooted in the 90s. It can give you the nostalgia feels, even though you don't remember watching that movie.
Absolutely.
So that could be an interesting experience because I've seen Monster Squad. I've got thoughts on it.
Well, Stranger Things gives me a lot of nostalgia vibes because of how it is in itself homaging. Like there's a lot of Star Wars and Indiana Jones references and Steven Spielberg stuff in there, and also tons of like I was saying this to you the other day about the Silence of the Lambs, the way that they meet Victor Creel and they walk down the corridor, and the way it's done, and the way the inmates are like peeking at them, and they're on exactly the same side of the door. Of the shot, I mean, and I mentioned it to Shosh that it's like Silence of the Lambs, and she didn't know exactly what I was talking about at first because she's only seen it once, and it was like and she wasn't sure if she'd seen it. I was like, yeah, you have, and it was like just cool to like notice these things, the framing and stuff like that. So there's a lot of nostalgia baked into
my wife also, like when
thing.
we were watching that, but she's seen Silence of the Lambs a few times, but also aside from having seen it on her own, she had to do it for a course that she did a year ago or so.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah. But she pointed all that. She actually pointed out...
That sounded sarcastic. I meant that genuinely.
For someone who doesn't have as much of a connection or a history or an obsession with movies as I do, she got quite a lot of those references, and I have to say I felt a twinge of pride because I think that a lot of that is my doing.
So I get that as well, but I also really get a kick out of pointing it out to Shosh because it makes me feel clever.
But the thing is about Stranger Things is that it's deliberate. But if you look at something like Monster Squad and it's pure, it's not. It has no sense of irony, no sense of like callback or self-referentialism or anything like that. It's very much a product of the time. That's so that would be very interesting for us to talk about.
Speaking of time, let's crack on. We've got games, VFX, trivia, and movie talk. It's all coming up right here on What's Our Seat Number. Let's have. No, you're not going at me?
No, go for it.
It's mine?
It's all yours. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to take back some of the things I've said about you, Jonathan. Let's have an episode. What's Our Seat Number? Hello and welcome to What's Our Seat Number, the only show in the world that doesn't mind a bit of slap and tickle. Lord knows I do, am I right, Johnny?
Oh, dear Lord.
I'm Sai. Why is there a question mark? Shit. I'm Sai, a 3D artist and game designer with a penchant for temper losing, fish and barrel shooting, leaving sentence unfinished. And with me is my brother. And no, we promise he doesn't dream about you in the night and pleasure himself while singing Merry Go Round Broke Down. It's filmmaker and podcaster Jonny Gross.
Oh my God.
Today we will be speaking about the newly released film The Black Phone, starring Ethan Hawke, Jeremy Davis, newcomers Mason Thames and Madeline McGraw. The film is directed by Scott Derrickson of Sinister fame, which scared the pants off of my brother, and is based off of a short story from Joe Hill. During this podcast, we will be counting off the many times that this film made Jonathan jump.
For fuck's sake.
And we will be prodding him with it.
Yes.
I enjoyed that. That was fun.
Okay. Be aware, listeners.
Spoilers!
There will be spoilers. We are discussing this movie from head to toe. Backfired, didn't it?
Soda. Sprayed in the face.
Can I have a bit of...
No. Pour yourself some. Oh. You're on the other end of it. It's like the scene from Batman.
Can you pass
the salt? You're too far away from it.
Do we say now? That's a bit of a mishap for you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Right, Korg.
All right, let's visit the news desk. It's time for some movie news. So this week on Movie Muse. Fuck me, I can't do this. I can never do this. I don't
understand. What is wrong with your mouth?
It's either movie news or movie muse. Maybe it's movie muse. I don't know. My daughter keeps me up at night, and I am tired.
Aye.
So this week on Movie News, Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson, for those not in the know, the producers and gatekeepers of the James Bond franchise, have said that a new Bond movie is at least 2 years away from starting production and that they're reinventing him. And quite frankly, while a lot of people online have said that, oh my god, 2 years? 2 years until they start filming, man. I'm like, give him time.
Yeah,
because
we need some time to get over what just happened.
Yeah, because
I think Jonny really needs some time to get over it.
My hate for this movie, and if anybody has listened to the epic double episode that we did at the beginning of our tenure as podcasters, they will know that this movie really, really annoyed me. And then only with time has it gotten worse. So... So yeah, I think it's ripe for a reinvention, and yeah, give it the time. Give it the time.
Does it not concern you when they say reinvention? What they mean by that? Does that sort of thing not concern you? Like what they're going to do with the property?
No, because I think the idea of them gatekeeping, which is what they've always said, is that they're protecting the franchise.
Yeah,
is that they wouldn't do anything, and I'm saying this now, fully aware of the irony in this statement, that they wouldn't do anything that would piss off the godfather of James Bond, Albert R. Broccoli, who passed away just as GoldenEye was released.
Yeah.
But then I say that, and then No Time to Die happens. So perhaps it was just to appease Daniel Craig, but I don't think that they're gonna reinvent him to the point where he's Rocket Raccoon. Although you look at me with those eyes and eyebrows raised, and I think that perhaps you think that they might.
Not that they'd make Rocket Raccoon, but that maybe they'd, I don't know. Like they'd make it very. I don't know. Maybe he'd be, very sort of, hello, I'm James Bond. I don't know.
My goodness. Let's not be silly.
What a silly Billy.
Custard.
Please stop trying to take over the world, you silly Billy.
So, I don't know why.
Now that's a show that I would watch.
Yeah.
James Bond's younger brother, Periwinkle Bond, apparently.
I think that while there's a lot of sort of diversifying going on in the MCU, for example, I think that that's fantastic. Yeah. They are always preserving the essence of the character, even when they're doing that. But again, Stan Lee and Steve Ditko and whoever else was working on creating characters back in the day were pretty diverse. They were creating characters like Blade and you had Panther. And Black Panther, and you've got Ms. Marvel as well. So I think that a lot of that stuff is from the source material. But I think there's a certain point where you take something like James Bond and you reinvent it to the point where it's not even recognizable as James Bond anymore. So they have to still keep to certain elements. And Barbara Broccoli has said that he's still going to be, a male at the very least.
Well,
if he's played by Henry Golding, that might not be such a terrible thing.
No, I don't think so.
If he's able to capture the essence of the character.
No, I don't think that matters. Look, I'm wondering. Here's a question for you: what would you feel if they were to give directing duties to Taika Waititi?
I think that would possibly be a mismatch. I think that
they might do something like that. They'd give it to a director who is, hot at the moment.
From what I've read from the reviews that have come out about Thor: Love and Thunder, he has given that movie a certain amount of darkness, and there is humor. Obviously, because it's Taika Waititi. I haven't seen Jojo Rabbit yet, but apparently that movie in its second half has a very, very dark switch.
Okay.
So in terms of seriousness, I don't think he's incapable, but I think that his general style is perhaps, and I don't believe that he's somebody that would compromise on a vision. So I'm not sure that he would necessarily be right for it. But if they did do that, I would hope that they would try to sort of keep it on brand, as it were.
Yeah.
You want to look at somebody who's either got experience with that kind of thing or is very deft with sort of character work and stuff like that. Everybody talks about Nolan. I'm not sure that Nolan would do it
on the cards. I don't think.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the idea. Quite frankly, if they gave it to somebody like Dave Filoni, who was the head writer and director of The Mandalorian, that could also work. I think it's all about sort of translating. Like, people come to me all the time and they say, "Have you done this exact project that I'm about to do?" And I say, well, I'm a filmmaker. I'm a cameraman. I'm an editor. No, I can do it in my style, but I can also come towards you and give you what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Like, for example, that thing that I showed you the other day. I did something for the police, and I did it in a completely different style to what I normally do. That's the thing. So there may be certain directors that can say, you know what, I'm a chameleon, and I can get in the James Bond headspace. But quite frankly, I would just love it if Martin Campbell came back to reinvent Bond for a third time. Anyway, we're back to movie news. James Cameron has said that people need to stop complaining about long movies. He says it's okay to take a pee break, and that people nowadays complaining about long movies are whining. Does that mean that Avatar 2 is going to be 4+ hours? Why didn't he just make it a TV series if he was going to do that?
I don't know.
Andrew Garfield has signed a deal with Marvel to return as Spider-Man. That's exciting news, because maybe if they give him a good director and they place it within the MCU, then they might actually make a good movie with him, because I have no problem. I think he's brilliant, and you see what he did under the guidance of John Watts.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really cool.
That would be good.
I wanted to before we sidle out of movie news, I wanted to talk to you about the 3 trailers that we saw before the Black Phone, and I wanted to get your opinion on what you saw. First of all, Jordan Peele's Nope. What did you think? I thought, first of all, that it was quite spoilery.
Yeah.
Because
maybe not. You don't know.
Although maybe not, but I think I saw the trailer and you get an idea of what it might be about, and then it was completely different to that.
I think that's probably what this trailer's done.
I really enjoyed Us, by the way. And I think that but showing the UFO and all that kind of stuff, like the original teaser trailer should have been left where it was.
Yeah.
Like I didn't necessarily want to know any of that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm looking forward to that one. I think it's I'm love
sure
anything
that he'll
that Jordan
find a way
Peele does.
to turn it on its head and surprise you.
Right. I love everything that Jordan Peele does.
What else did we
see? We saw Smile.
Yeah.
Which is looks kind of like, I think it's Blumhouse or A24 or something like that.
It was creepy.
It was creepy. I thought. I think it may not be something to see in the cinema, but
I'm not like going, interested. I have to watch that movie. That's not like. All
right, I'm definitely interested to see it. And the movie that I thought looked kind of fun, but you said it looked stupid, Bullet Train with Brad Pitt and Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, it just. I don't know whether it was the trailer or it just went on for a little bit longer than it should have.
Yeah, and it's the whole movie basically.
Yeah, I did not. Also, I don't know. All these movies where they take an actor who's a bit older and they turn them into action heroes and whatnot,
but
I'm a little bit fed up with them, to be honest. Just like I'm fed up with legacy sequels. It's like it's starting to grate on me.
I think they're kind of like beating the shit out of him a little bit more than he's an action hero. But I think it's got like kind of a Smoking Aces kind of vibe. One of those kind of like comedies where you've got this kind of beaten down everyman who's getting shunted from crazy occurrence to crazy occurrence. I don't know. I think that could be fun. I'm kind of interested to see that. Again, maybe not for the cinema, but I would be interested to see it. And you also said to me when we went in to see The Black Phone, you said that we haven't been to see a horror movie in the cinema for ages.
Yeah.
We went to see Scream.
Oh, that's true. That is true, isn't it?
Yeah, but the difference is...
I don't think about Scream as horror movies, though.
Right, because it didn't make me jump, and it didn't scare me.
It's a different kind of...
It's like a thriller.
I always find slasher movies to be very, very different from like a horror movie with ghosts and tension. Like, if we were to go and see something like Insidious or Sinister. Oh, here's the thing, is that Invisible Man is not really one of those movies, but it still behaves like a ghost movie.
It's also
the way
Blumhouse.
Yeah. So, it's just a different vibe to Scream. But you're right, it is classified a horror movie.
Yeah. Anyway, that was movie news. Okay, so now I've got a new game for you.
Yeah.
It's called Brit, Yank or Aussie. Or Kiwi. This is the point where I give you the name of an actor or an actress, and you have to guess if they're Brit, Yank, Aussie, or Kiwi. So, first up, is well, actually, there's a couple of TV themes here. But anyway, so the first one is Joseph Quinn, who played Eddie Munson in Stranger Things season 4. Is he a Brit, a Yank, an Aussie, or a Kiwi?
As I understand it, he's a Brit.
Correct. Very good. I was quite surprised at that because his American accent is very, very good.
Yeah.
And he really, I believed that he was a product of the 80s.
I did too. Also, he was, I just heard him speaking with a British accent in interviews, so it's not like I guessed it or something. Go on.
So you probably know this one as well. Millie Bobby Brown, who plays 11.
He's
British, correct. Okay, next one. Anthony Starr, who plays Homelander in The Boys.
He is an Aussie, isn't he? No, is he a Kiwi?
He's a Kiwi. Yeah.
He's a Kiwi.
Okay. Soon to be seen in Jordan Peele's Nope and the star of Get Out, Daniel Kaluuya.
He's a Brit, no?
Correct.
Yeah.
He is indeed. His American accent is excellent.
Also very good.
So is also I was quite shocked. I wasn't shocked because I'd seen Attack the Block before John Boyega starred in Force Awakens, but his American accent in Force Awakens is pitch perfect.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Daniel Kaluuya in the trailer for Nope and also in Get Out.
He was in.
It's seamless.
He was
Absolutely
in Black
seamless.
Mirror. He was in an episode of Black Mirror, and that's he's using his
the one with the
accent.
bikes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
okay, and the final one, Joel Edgerton.
He's a Brit, isn't he?
No.
Wait, which one's Joel Edgerton?
Joel Edgerton plays Uncle Owen. He's also in a bunch of other things.
Oh, no, I was thinking of Taron Egerton. No, he's a Brit.
No, he's not. Yes, Taron Egerton is a Brit, yeah.
I don't know what Joel Edgerton... I don't know.
He's an Aussie. Yeah. Well,
I don't know how many of those I got right, but some of them.
No, you got 1, 2, 3 out of 5.
Oh, so my doubloons, please.
Your doubloons.
Clinky, 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 clinky.
And that was Brit, Yank, or Aussie. Or Kiwi.
Very good. I like that. It's a nice, quick. That's quick, nice and quick.
Yeah, it's nice and quick. So let's talk context for the Black Phone. What did you know? What do you know about Ray Finkel? What did you know about Joe Hill before? What did you know about Joe Hill?
So I've seen the Lock and Key TV series.
Right, all of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I didn't read Nosferatu, but I did. I know about his dad, Mr. King.
Mr. Step
Hen King.
Yes. My first introduction to Step Hen King was when our father was reading the Tommyknockers, which I found to be the most hilarious title I'd ever seen.
Did you get like a big like gut punch thing when Lucas was reading Max The Talisman?
Yes, I did actually, because
you love The Talisman.
So when I first
Stranger Things branch off. My apologies.
Yeah. So when I first came here, I was in a dorm room, and the previous tenant of my bed kind of thing had left a whole bunch of books, and he said to me before he left, you can just have them, go nuts, take your pick. One of them was The Talisman, and I feasted on that for like a month or something.
It's long, yeah.
It's very, very long. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, it's The Talisman. I've still got it somewhere.
Yeah. You lent it to me and you said, just read this. It's really good.
Yeah, it's got a Dark Tower vibe.
It's connected to the Dark Tower. It's
connected to the Dark Tower.
I love the Dark Tower so much. Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of Stephen King. I've got a lot of Stephen King's books.
Yeah, me too.
And a lot of the movies that are based on his work have been very, very successful. Mm-hmm. I think probably because of the volume of his work. Like he's written so many books that like there's more of a hit rate just by way of sheer numbers.
Yeah.
But you've got things like The Dead Zone. The Dead Zone's a fantastic movie. You've got The Green Mile and The Shawshank Redemption and The Mist. That Frank Darabont was one of the directors who was so adept at adapting his work.
He was an adapter.
Yeah, there's obviously It Chapter 1, Chapter 2 recently that were very well judged. He's done. He's got. There are a lot of like Misery also, and Stand By Me.
Get into the cock-a-doodle car.
Yeah, there's a lot of movies based on Stephen King works that I think are just fantastic. There are also a lot of movies that aren't great based on Stephen King's work.
Yeah.
But anyway, so when it comes to Joe
Law
Hill,
of averages, isn't it?
law of averages. So when it comes to Joe Hill, I remember I was on holiday, I think around like 2016 or something like that, and I saw Nosferatu. And I didn't know anything about Joe Hill. I didn't know that he was Stephen King's son, but I saw this kind of like number plate title that's like written NOS4R2. It was R. I was in Malta at the time, so I think that might be the British version, and the American version is A2. It's R2. So yeah, I don't know. I think the R works better, Nosferatu, but that's just me. Basically, the first chapter concerns, I believe it's like Charlie Manx who's in a coma, and he's like, you find out later on that he's like a vampire and he's a child snatcher. Like Joe Hill's got this thing about child snatchers, and the main character, whose name's Victoria, you see her from like being a child to being an adult. She rides her bike through this sort of abandoned covered bridge in the woods, and it takes her to places that she wants to go. And there's like just this little thing with a bracelet, I believe, if I remember correctly, and she like finds the bracelet and return, like she basically finds lost things, so it can take her through time and space, and like that first chapter just kind of grabbed me. Like it's his use of the supernatural and the unusual, and the way that he built the characters and the way that he sort of told the story, the way it flowed. His prose just kind of like really grabbed me, and also he's like unflinching. Like his father also like deals with a lot of really heinous shit, and some of the prose is very difficult to read, and the same thing with Joe Hill is like it's kind of like, you know, people would say to me like, why do you watch those kinds of movies, or why do you read those kinds of books? But that's the reason why. You want to feel something. You want it to be visceral. You want it to be real. You want it to grab you.
I mean, again, I don't understand why anybody asks anyone why you would want to. You're obviously pulled by something there, right. And it's
but my wife always asks me. My wife always asks me like, why would you watch horror films if you're jumping at shadows in the dark? It happened to me after Hereditary, that like I started like seeing shadows of like people like smiling at me in the darkness and stuff like that. You do that so that you can like sort of exercise that fear muscle. You get that injection of adrenaline, and it's the kind of thing where, but you can do it in like a safe space.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's like it's cathartic. So I enjoy that kind of thing, and and Joe Hill writes a lot of sort of like dark fantasy. So there was 20th Century Ghosts, which is a short story collection which the Black Phone appears in. And I remember reading the Black Phone at the time, but I didn't reread it before seeing the movie because I didn't want anything ruined for me. And then there was Heart-Shaped Box, which is also a great book. And then I discovered when we went to Free Comic Book Day a few years ago, and we got our free comic books, and then we were looking at the shelves, like looking, what would I buy? And everybody's like going for, sort of Superman and Batman and Marvel and all that stuff. And I went straight for Lock and Key because I saw the name Joe Hill. And I bought all of those, like sight unseen. I bought the first 4 volumes, and that also like grabbed me. It's amazing artwork, it's amazing storytelling, and I really, really enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy the Netflix adaptation that much, so I stopped watching after about 4 or 5 episodes.
I've heard from other people who've read the graphic novel that it doesn't live up to it.
Right, because and I was saying this to you last night, that that you hold certain authors up to a certain standard, that the adaptation of the work, and it is possible, like, I mean, you've got to take into account that things are going to get changed. Movies are a different medium to novels, and things are going to get changed, but you want to capture the essence of the writing. And I think for me, the Black Phone achieved that. And to a certain extent, Horns achieved that. but Nosferatu and the AMC adaptation and the Netflix adaptation of Lock and Key didn't quite do it for me. And I say it's possible because all of those movies that I mentioned before that are based on Stephen King novels really did capture the essence.
Yeah.
So it's not completely out of the realm of possibility.
Part one is a great example of capturing the essence of
absolutely. And as we were talking about on the way home, the first two Harry Potter movies really did that as well.
Yeah.
So that's my context for Joe Hill. In terms of Scott Derrickson, I remember Soda. In terms of Scott Derrickson, I remember seeing The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and that got horrible reviews on release, from what I remember. But I absolutely adored it. I thought it was frightening. I thought the discussion of using God as a basis for a court case was a very, very interesting one. And the court scenes to me are just as compelling as the flashback scenes and the exorcism scenes and all those frights and whatnot. And I just thought that was a great movie. And I thought that Scott Derrickson is one to watch. I never watched the Day the Earth Stood Still. That also got horrible reviews, but I never saw that. I would like to. And Sinister. Sinister is probably the closest thing that Scott Derrickson has done to this movie, not least the sort of
the Ethan Hawke connection,
and also the Super 8 footage, which is used so expertly in Sinister.
And it's also used great in this movie.
As well
as dreamlike,
as the visions. Yeah. There was a movie that he did called Deliver Us from Evil, which I didn't love. I thought that was one of his lesser efforts, and of course the first Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Love the author, love the main actor, love the director. Love the genre, love Blumhouse. This was a no-brainer for me. I was going to go see this movie no matter what, even if you said to me, "I'm not interested."
I was always going to go with you. I was always interested in the film.
Now, as I said, we're going to be talking spoilers. But for those of you who haven't seen the film and are probably not going to see the film, Babs, I'm looking at you. This is the synopsis.
We're going to do this in 30 seconds, Johnny said, so I'm putting on a timer. 1, 2, 3, go.
Denver, 1978. A serial child abductor named the Grabber, played by Ethan Hawke, is snatching kids from Finney and Gwen's neighborhood. Finney is having problems at school and Gwen is having dreams of the kidnappings, but are they real? When Finney is abducted, he's placed in a cellar with nothing but a disconnected black phone on the wall and a mattress. The terrifying Grabber, wearing creepy masks, wants to play by leaving the cellar door unlocked and waiting at the top of the stairs to beat him with a belt if he tries to leave without permission, but Finney isn't biting. All seems lost, but Finney soon starts to realize that all is not as it seems, as the phone starts to ring and he starts to hear voices from the beyond. While on the outside, Gwen tries to force her visions to try and find her missing brother.
I set the timer for 30 minutes by accident. But you did it in 40 seconds. Right. Well done.
Ethan Hawke as the Grabber.
So I want to discuss an aspect of his sort of character that isn't really... it's not expanded on, and you know how it's always like, what you don't know, the fact that you don't know Hannibal Lecter's motivations and whatnot, to not make him scarier and all that. So things are hinted at, like he's obviously got some sort of psychosis to do with this, with his mask. He has to wear the mask, and if his mask is removed,
to cover his face.
If his mask is removed completely, then it sort of paralyzes him, as happens at the end. Like it's never explained why but it doesn't need to be. Obviously, he's been abused as a child. He was put in
perhaps
this basement.
He was one of the kids in the basement, probably abused by his father or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I'm interested to reread the short story and see if there's any sort of like description of that backstory.
Yeah, I'm interested as well to read the short story. Mm-hmm. He's he's doing some very interesting vocal things. With like he goes from being kind of very eat it, don't eat it, oh you goofball, he's like the clown,
right?
And then his voice goes very deep, and he's like, I want it to really hurt, like he's like very it's very sinister, it's very but you know what I mean. And as you mentioned to me last night, I don't want to step on anything you've said, you're going to say, like, I also love the mask that detaches in different, and also has different facial expressions. Like there's this thing Johnny just said in the synopsis about, we were talking about how, he leaves the door open, and Finn is like, that he hears on the phone rings, and he picks it up, and they say, don't go up the stairs because he's waiting for you.
Yeah, he wants
you to misbehave,
right,
so that he has an excuse to kill you,
yeah.
And he'll beat the crap out of you and kill you.
Right. And that's a good explanation as well as to why Finney is the one who spoiler, survives, but also lasts as long as he does, because some of the other kids obviously saw that the cellar door was open and tried to run, and that was the thing. Don't leave without permission. Yeah,
they all tried different things, and they told him to try them too. And they all turn out to be sort of dead ends, apart from the last one, whatever. But the
all of it actually comes together at the end. To be honest,
yeah, it does.
Yeah,
it really does. You're 100% correct. And he does sort of go up the stairs a little bit, but then the camera pans over and we see him facing. We see the grabber facing the entrance to the hallway in a chair.
He's sitting in the kitchen and he's topless.
And he's wearing a new mask, which is instead of the smiley version, this angry version, which is sort of like, I've caught you doing something naughty and now I'm angry with you. Like, he's anticipating it. And this whole part of this game that he's playing in his head is very frightening. It's really, really scary.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about the masks. So they're designed by Tom Savini. Who is a veteran special effects and prosthetics artist, and he made these masks. I think what they remind me of more than anything, especially the sort of the sort of frown mask, the sort of turtle face mask, as it were, is it kind of reminds me a lot of the ghoul from Sinister, and I love that kind of thing because it shows you a through line in the decision making process, and you see that it all kind of trickles down from the director, from the sensibilities of the director, and I love that,
and visual style,
yeah, and the masks kind of have you see, like in the first close up of the mask, that there's a seam along the cheek, the top of the cheeks, and through the bridge of the nose, which allows him to change the bottom or the top of the mask as he sees fit. And there's a moment where the grabber is standing in the doorway in shadow. And he's holding he's holding like a tray with food on it, and he says to Finney, I'm about to let you go if you tell me your name. And Finney lies, and he says his name's Taylor something and whatever, and then you see that the grabber kind of like steps out of the shadow into the light, and you see that he's wearing the sort of the frown mask, angry mask,
because he knew he was going to lie.
He was going to lie to him, and he tosses the today's newspaper at him, and Finney sees that there's a whole article about him that he's missing, and his name is in there, and he says, I was going to let you go, Finney.
He really wasn't going to let him go.
He really wasn't going to let him go, but like I love that fact that you don't know what mask he's wearing. And he steps out of the shadow, and then you suddenly see that he's moment. Because it's as if his expression changed, but it was always
going to be that because he knew.
Yeah, and I think that first of all, Ethan Hawke recently he started going a little bit more into the realm of villains. He plays Arthur Harrow in Moon Knight, and I think he does a great job in that. But this takes
is something else
to a whole other level. This reminds me of Stanley Tucci in The Lovely Bones. This is something that could either be too close to home, in which case is uncomfortable and yucky, but to me he strikes that balance between otherworldly pantomime villain, moustache twirling, but with depth. He's got like this. And the great thing is, because he's wearing these masks, as all the emotion is coming from the eyes and from the voice and from the gestures and whatever, and you see that he's like really pumped himself up. He's kind of not exactly ripped, but more like Tom Hardy in as Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. It's kind of like almost fat, but toned.
But not, yeah. He's also
a kind of strongman kind of physique.
Yeah, you can believe. Well, I mean, yeah, he's like really. He's able to take them down. They're not kids like young kids. They're like 14, maybe.
I would say so.
And, there's also, I don't know if you got this, but there's almost a sexual undertone there. Like, he sort of says to him, we're not going to do anything that you don't want to do.
Right.
And, but it leaves it to the imagination of, like, what he did to the other kids before he killed them,
Right. It depends where he gets his sexual gratification, though. It's, it could be from the beating.
Yeah.
It might not actually be something overtly sexual.
Yeah.
He might get sexual pleasure from the beating, but and from the killing as well. But anyway, I thought that in terms of the psychological kind of mind games that he plays and all that kind of, I just thought he was pitch perfect. It's a very difficult role to get into, and I know that Stanley Tucci, after The Lovely Bones, said that he was extremely disturbed by playing that role.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But I think it looks like, to me, like Ethan Hawke is really enjoying kind of chewing the scenery. I also noticed kind of a sort of homosexual undertone, which I think I read about, as the movie came out a week ago or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, that there's some kind of controversy behind that. And I'm not sure if that's explicitly stated in the novel or not, but there's definitely a kind of
he's only taking boys.
He's only taking boys. Yeah,
he's a pedophile. He's only interested in boys. There's a lot of sort of hinted at but never stated things, which I think is also part of that mystery that makes it more frightening. The supernatural element to it, where, the black phone rings and he picks it up and then he's talking to the dead kids.
Right.
And they're sort of giving him tips or whatever it is sort of like this nice sort of element to it. But it could have worked without any of that, just because of, how he's behaving and how he's revealing some things, but at the same time, absolutely nothing about himself. Like, it's very, very sort of like fluid. It's
but
always moving.
That to me is the fingerprints of Joe Hill. Is that supernatural element in there, and the fact that Gwen, the younger sister, is having these dreams and visions and whatever. Like, it's that's very much Joe Hill, and I was very much aware that I was watching a Joe Hill adaptation throughout the entire thing, which I really enjoyed. But yeah, there's the supernatural element, the whole phone thing. The thing is that I read this out on the minisode from the field that you may get after this episode's released, or not at all, depending on how it goes. But there was a Facebook post on the Empire group, funnily enough. It's a letterboxed review, and it's got 4 stars, and it says, during the screening tonight, someone ripped ass and sounded like they shit themselves right after a jump scare. 0.2 seconds later, a guy came running down the stairs of the theater and never came back. I thought that was quite amusing, and I read this out like while we were sitting in the seats before the trailers started and everything. And the funny thing is that during the movie, I jumped a grand total of 3 times.
You did.
It started off by, kind of, oh, Jesus Christ. Like, I jumped 3 feet in the air because I wasn't expecting it. The second time, it was like, oh, for fuck's sake, he did it again. And then the third time, I was like,
he's going to get me.
He's going to get me again, isn't he? Oh, my God. Yeah. And but the funny thing is that it was nothing to do with Ethan Hawke.
And what was your brother? Oh, right. Your brother was cool as a cucumber.
Cool as a fucking cucumber, you twat. It's all to do with that supernatural element of the dead kids communicating with Vinny over the phone. And yeah, I mean, first of all, fuck you, Scott Derrickson, but well done.
Yeah. Good job.
No, because like there are times where, you read about a movie that has jump scares in it, and I watch it and it doesn't do anything for me, whether it's in the cinema or at home. But this one, the jump scares were not integral to the movie as a horror movie, because there was definitely some creepiness without it, but they fucking worked. And if you're going to do jump scares, they should work.
Yeah.
They
didn't feel cheap. There is such a thing as it's, ramping up tension, there's going to be a jump scare. Like, I mean, the reason I didn't jump is because I could see them coming, but they were good jump scares.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see them coming for some reason, because he's just like chatting on the phone with them, whatever. Like, there are a few times when the grabber just appears, and I inwardly jumped.
Yeah.
But I didn't physically jump, and I just thought
those were mine. Mine were inward jumps.
Right, and I just thought that I enjoy that. That's what I go to these movies for,
you want to be frightened.
And it delivered.
Yeah, it really did.
It delivered on that front. It creates a sense of dread throughout as well that sort of hangs in the air, which is also another thing. Which is why, like I said before, that I would have cut down some of the stuff that happens outside of the basement, because it kind of breaks the tension a little bit. Sorry.
I did find that the movie definitely found. It had a lot of fluff in the outside stuff as well, and with Gwen.
Yeah.
But I did find that it was kind of the opposite of what you'd expect, really. They were able to do the intense emotions, the two kids.
Right.
But, there was some stuff
specifically
that was
Gwen. It was Gwen.
I don't know. I also felt that he had a couple of bum moments as well, like where he just looked like he was very constipated.
They were very few and far between if they were there. I didn't notice anything. I thought Mason Thames or Thames. I don't know.
Thames.
I don't know. Don't trust us with pronunciation.
Don't trust us at all.
Tomorrow, Trevorrow. Tomorrow. Anyway, so. So Mason Thames or Thames or
oh, for fuck's sake!
I thought that he was very, very good. He's got to carry the entire movie on his young shoulders, and he did a fantastic job.
An amazing job.
And the actress playing Gwen, whose name is Madeleine McGraw. So she was good.
Madeline.
She was good in the intense scenes, like she's being beaten by her father and she cries, and I thought that she was fantastic. I also had like those scenes are very difficult to watch for me as well, because I had a certain reaction. I have experience with that, but also I kind of, like a couple of years ago, I kind of paid it forward with my son, and it's just like a light slap on the legs, but I made him scream and cry, and I wanted to kill myself afterwards.
Yeah.
So not just like the sort of being on the receiving end of it, which is very difficult to see, but also
as a parent,
you can see the pain that Jeremy Davis is going through as the father. That he's doing that kind of thing, and he can't stop doing it, and that he's a drunk and he's drinking. Even that one split second of sort of misjudgment and losing my cool that happened a couple of years ago and hasn't happened since, and hopefully will never happen again, was something that made me want to literally jump out of a window or slit my wrists. It was very, very difficult to sort of reconcile the fact that I'd done that. And watching this movie, like, it brought back all of that. Now, I'm not going to say that that's a bad thing, because something that gives you a visceral reaction like that is testament to the filmmakers and to the writing and to the acting as well. But yeah, there's some triggering stuff in there. Let's put it that way.
There is a trigger warning there. About that. Yeah. I felt that scene where he's beating her with the belt and she's crying, and she is actually crying, and she's doing the child sort of like, just upside down frown thing, the frown scream thing. Yeah. And my eldest, does that. If I get annoyed with him or something. And it was just very uncomfortable for me. Like, I was talking about it with Josh last night, and she was like, "Yeah, but you don't hit him with a belt or anything. Like, you don't hit him. You don't raise a hand to him. Like, you're a very good dad. Like, she's like, you don't. So we all lose our temper with our kids. Yeah. Because we're all human and we're all tired and whatever, and it's hard. But you still feel like shit when you do, and you still feel like shit when you see it on screen, because movies have a way of holding up a mirror, right? That not just it can also trigger you from your childhood, right? Or it can trigger you now as an adult, like in things that you wish you didn't do or didn't have about yourself. The thing is that we're always working on it. I can actually say about you that ever since that incident that happened, by the way, it was a very small incident. You weren't whacking him with a belt or anything.
No, but it's the sort of the violence of the act that kind of shocked him and shocked me at the same time. Like, as soon as it happened,
you wouldn't let it go for a very long time, even after your wife had let it go and he had let it go and all of that. Triggering stuff. Moving on.
So coming to that, like, there were also certain scenes with Gwen. that I felt like she wasn't convincing at all. Now, it's very, very difficult to find child actors who are convincing. And there's like the 2% where you have people like Haley Joel Osment or Dakota Fanning or Elle Fanning for that matter.
Yeah.
Where you have these kids who are just completely unaffected and who feel like they're bearing their very soul to you at a very, very young age. And while I think that Mason Thames was a little bit more in that direction, I felt like Madeline McGraw probably
Still
needed a little bit. She needed a little bit more coaching in certain scenes. And there's also certain things where she's like sort of praying to Jesus for her visions.
Please.
Hey Jesus, what's up? How's it going? And there's one point where she doesn't have a dream at all, and she kneels down and she goes, Jesus, what the fuck, man? No dreams at all. And I just thought, like, I don't know if it was judged as a kind of way to break the tension, but it just kind of
fell flat.
Yeah, it fell a bit flat. And I think that she wasn't the one to sort of deliver that kind of humor. But anyway,
she did convey, the worry and the panic and the urgency, the important emotions. I did feel that she was.
There was
able
definitely
to get
pathos
across.
there,
we can't all be the kids from Stranger Things when we're child actors, right? We can, that is I was saying to Shosh, while we were watching it, I said that from season 1 onwards, like, there are some of them who aren't like perfect, but even the least strong actors in that group are still very, very strong actors, and they're all. It's incredible how the cast is so impeccably good,
right?
So it's hard to do. It's hard to cast that sort of thing, and at that age, she did a good job in most of it. I think.
I think that more of an editorial thing, that there probably could have been a few nips and tucks in the Gwen department. There could have been a little bit less Gwen.
Yeah.
So yeah, but she is somewhat integral to the plot, and she is the one that finds him in the end. So
yeah, but she's not really, because if you think about all that stuff that they go to the other house. The grabber has 2 houses. He's got one where he buries the bodies and one where he keeps the kids. Like, Finn has escaped. He's killed the grabber with the phone,
right?
And
we'll
he
get
walks
to that,
out, and her being there, not being there, the police being there, not being there, absolutely inconsequential. He literally could have just walked home from there.
That's funny, actually, that you mentioned that, because now I'm sort of thinking of that whole argument about Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's kind of like, But I wanted to talk about that for a second. The 2 house thing. I thought that it should have been handled a little bit more in a Silence of the Lambsy kind of way, that cross-cutting, the fake out.
Yeah.
It didn't quite work for me, and I was watching it and I was going, why are there 2? I mean, it's supposed to obviously like throw you off the scent. But it just
wasn't presented.
It wasn't
the way
presented.
It yeah,
it wasn't quite. It didn't quite. It felt a little bit flat for me. And the other thing was, in the same token, was the brother. I thought was a completely superfluous character.
Yeah.
That the grabber has a brother that's sort of staying with him in the house that he's either the house that he's burying the kids in or house that he's keeping the kids. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And just like none of that storyline needed to be there. I thought it was completely superfluous. But anyway, I digress. Finn killing the grabber. We're doing this completely out of order, but what do you think?
I was actually really happy with that.
I mean, I thought there was definitely a fist punch.
Yeah, there was a fist pumping.
Fist pumping, yeah. Kind of a
Pump in your fist.
Yeah.
Benjamin.
But what, believable?
No, but a lot of that film isn't very believable. I had completely
realistic
suspended...
versus believable.
No, I'm saying that like...
You had suspended disbelief.
I had completely suspended disbelief the minute she started having visions. Like, I was okay with the black phone, and I would have like accepted that he was speaking to the ghosts, and whatever. Right. Maybe I would have found that ending a bit jarring.
Okay.
But like, because of the visions and how she found the house and she'd brought the police there, I was already like, the thing about him killing the grabber is important because, as you said, it brings all of the kids who died, like all of their experiences together.
Right.
And I think there's even a sort of...
Yeah, that he falls into the hole that one of them told him to dig, and the grate that the one kid tells him to like pull out a cable that's sort of in the side of the wall and use it to climb up to the window, and then the grate is sort of like pulled loose from the window, but he still uses the wire to, and so he stashes the grate in the hole. The grabber, he uses the wire to trip the grabber up. The grabber falls into the hole, breaks his ankle on the grate that's inside the hole. Like there's he uses the meat from the freezer to
distract
the dog. One of the kids tells him to sort of make a hole in the wall and
get into a freezer
and use it, like unscrew the all of those things have a use, and it's really quite like I found that part exciting because
it was like Lego pieces clicking into place. A very satisfying clicking sound.
And then that one element, like first of all, I love the opening scene. The opening scene is a baseball game.
Yeah.
Where Finn is playing he's the pitcher to this kid Bruce, who's the batter, and the two pitches Bruce strikes out, and then on the third pitch he hits it. There's this feeling of of antagonism between the two of them because obviously they're on opposite sides of the game. But then at the end of it, Bruce comes up to Finney and he says that good game, your arm is strong. Is really strong kind of thing because he's got a strong pitch.
You almost had
me. You almost had me, and he uses that. That plot element, he being Joe Hill or Scott Derrickson, they use that plot element at the end to explain why Finn is able to strangle the grabber with the phone.
He's actually quite strong.
Yeah, because he's got a strong arm.
Even Robin says to him...
Robin's one of the other kids that gets abducted.
One of the other kids. He says to him, I can't hit this guy. And he's like, yes, you can. You're very strong. You can throw a hard punch. You just don't because you don't have the confidence.
Right, exactly.
And, it's about Finn coming out of his sort of lack of confidence shell. Like even the reason he loses the game, right, at the beginning of the movie, he could have done 3 strikes. He has a very strong arm, but he sort of wimps out on the third one and throws a weak one because he notices a girl in the crowd looking at him that he likes, and his confidence goes down. And it's like
so all of that is established very, very well during during that first act. And that's what I love about Joe Hill and Stephen King for that matter, is that they're always very well-rounded characters, and even though you've got these fantastical elements, there's always depth. Yeah. And there's always pathos, and there's always like these, as I said, the difficult elements of the plot are visceral. They make you react. Mm-hmm. That's what you want a movie to do. They want you want it to make you feel. And there's great contrast in that opening scene that like the focus shifts from Finney to Bruce. And Bruce is like riding his bike down the street, and he's like sort of winking at the girls, and you've got the Edgar Winter Group's Free Ride in the background. Which, by the way, when a song fills the cinema like that, it fills the speakers. It really gives you like that amazing feeling, like you hear the music and the sound mix and everything, and then it sort of like just fades to black and echoes out, and and it just kind of like shows you.
You see the black van pull up in front of him.
Yeah, exactly. You see the black van pull up out of focus in the foreground, or in the background rather. Yeah. And then it fades to black as it pulls up in slow motion, and you have that kind of first of all, it establishes the world. Denver, 1978. The clothes, the style of cinematography. It wasn't shot on film, and I think that they used vintage anamorphic lenses, and they probably added in a little bit of artificial grain in there to give it that kind of old school 70s brown kind of sepia look. And you have that whole like dreamlike quality of like that sort of rose tinted glasses nostalgia. And then you see all that kind of this kid Bruce, he's a great baseball player, the girls love him, he's got his entire life ahead of him, comes to a grinding halt as soon as you see that van. And that's just a really great opening, I thought. It's so subtle, you don't have to have CGI Tom Holland hanging out of the back of a plane, that's like a sort of flash forward to a scene that comes in its entirety later on in the movie, in order to grab the audience. This movie grabs the audience with a very low-key opening. And it's just a great mood setter, I think. So yeah.
There's something very triggering for me about kids being in danger, I think, for all of us.
Which is why especially when you're a parent,
It doesn't matter. Like, we all associate kids with childhood innocence. When that is threatened, it hits us all somewhere, because at some point in our childhoods, we were all in a position where we were scared. Right. You want to, when you're a child, that innocence was threatened.
When you're a child, you want to feel like you're safe. Like your home life is.
And when you're a parent, you want your children to be safe. Right. I was actually. This is a bit of a sort of digress, but when I was taking my eldest to his daycare. And they have like a gate with a combination code where the combination code is not particularly. It's really dumb.
Yeah.
And, fine, whatever. But I got there one morning, and not just one morning, several mornings, where the bar to lock it was actually pushed across and being used to prop the door open. To prop
the door open, yeah, I hate that.
And I took a picture of it. I took a picture of it, and I sent it to the WhatsApp group with all the other parents. And I told them off, and I said, stop doing that, because, the extra 3 seconds that you gain when you leave from leaving it open like that is the extra 3
seconds. Worth, the lives of our kids.
Can you explain that when your kid is in danger? Like, I know that it sounds silly, but it's not. That I want my children to feel safe. I want to know that when I'm here doing this podcast with you, or I'm at work, or whatever it is, that I'm not constantly worried about my children. These sorts of things, like even that shot, what made me really, really, my stomach turn was the shot of the graves, and then the freshly dug one in the other house where he buries them. Mm-hmm. That, more than anything, upset me. And, I'm constantly just worried about them, when they're walking down the street with me, and, I turn around and my eldest is a little bit further behind me than I thought he was. I get freaked out.
Yeah.
And I know that, at some point you have to let go and you have to let them walk home by themselves when they're, of an age. But I wonder if you ever stop worrying about them.
So I don't think so. Look, my son has a tricycle. He's got a scooter now, but back when he had the tricycle,
he just scooches on ahead, doesn't he?
Yeah, he used to go around corners and whatever, and I used to peg it after him, yelling at him to stop.
I remember.
And I used to say to him, I'm going to take it away from you if you're going to do that, because I don't know if he's going to turn a corner and there's some pedophile waiting to snatch him.
Not even that. He can turn around and someone can accidentally drive up onto the pavement.
Yeah, or he's going to scoot into the road or something. Yeah. I think that's a constant. But this is interesting. I was thinking about this last night when I got home, that the protagonist of choice for a lot of horror writers and directors was usually a woman. Whether it's a teenager, whether it's an adult, whatever it is, it was usually a woman or a child. The cliche is that women and children are vulnerable. They said on the Titanic, women and
Not
children
nowadays.
first. Women and children first, or whatever. Or I don't, hitmen always say, I don't kill women and children and whatnot. That's the...
Not the way I play Hitman.
The general societal consensus is that women and children are off limits. And when you put women and children in danger, it ups the tension. I think that has been disproven when you look at something like Buried. Have you ever watched Buried with Ryan Reynolds?
Of course I have, yeah.
Okay, so that is when you take...
Sinister.
Or Sinister. Yeah, exactly. When you take a male character and you strip away all of their all of their sort of resolve and confidence and strength and all that kind of stuff, and you make them vulnerable, they are just as susceptible as any woman or any child. This movie is all about the kids, right? And there's nothing to it. Like, if you put kids in danger, it makes the stakes very, very high. So yeah, it just interests me, the sort of the choice of protagonists in a horror film, and what those sort of considerations are of you know, who you're going to put in danger, so to speak, so that the audience will have the most visceral reaction to it as is humanly possible. And obviously, you know, putting kids in danger is not only like a repugnant thought. You know, it's something that you know, keep us up at night. Yeah. But it's also very effective in a horror movie. Yeah. So yeah, I was just thinking about, like, you know, what the sort of ins and outs of that are. Anyway.
Well, I mean, you know, I can't remember who it was. I was reading just a few days ago an article about why kids are the subject of horror movies, and it's because of that element of, you know, innocence being threatened, that is something that affects you whether you have kids or not. Right.
You look at movies, recent movies that have come out and on this same subject, like 10 Cloverfield Lane, for example. You know, the protagonist is a woman. The funny thing is that the male character gets killed and the female character survives. Or Split, you know, the main character is a woman again, played by Anya Taylor-Joy. Or you look at something like Room, which is a woman and a child. So not the Room. I fed up with this world. So
hi, doggy.
I did not hit her. I find it interesting what the choices are and what the reasoning behind the choices are. But anyway, I have a couple of critiques that I wanted to level at this movie, aside from the stuff that I liked about it, which was, you know, to be fair, like maybe like
most of it,
85% I loved. You know, there was like, for example, if you watch the beginning of The Conjuring 2, there's about 15 minutes there where the acting isn't great, the writing isn't great, just the establishment of everything. And, you know, I think it's also down to the bad British accents by American actors. But once that movie gets going, it's incredible and so scary. But and here I felt kind of the same way. There's a lot of Gwen in the opening act. But like it really does establish the world very, very well, and you know, and once you get to the grabber, it has all the more impact. So I already said that Gwen needed to be cut down a little bit, and maybe like have a little bit of acting coaching. To be honest with you, all three kids in the Harry Potter movies improved
over time.
Really, like, I mean, all three of them are fantastic actors now, but they started off a little bit rough. So, you know, you can't say that Madeline McGraw is a bad actress. She's not. But she needed a little bit of fine tuning there. That's what I felt.
It's something that I'm able to, like, you know, look past just because I understand that she's a child, and I was greatly impressed by the things that she did very well. So I wasn't necessarily taken out of it. I know that you were taken out of it a little bit more.
Right.
But yeah, it was, I thought she was, I could have used less of her just because, you know, at the end of the day, her character does not end up having any consequential impact on the movie.
Right. I think she's just there for the tension.
She brings a lot of heart. She brings a lot of heart,
but also she's having these visions that kind of explain how the other kids were taken as well, which gives a little bit of shading there. The other thing was there's a scene in which Finney is being ganged up on by three bullies, and he's being beaten up, and Gwen kind of like rushes at him with a war cry, like, get off my brother, you fucks. And she starts like beating the shit out of one of them and whatever, and she hits one of the guys in the head with a rock, and his temple starts gushing blood. On the one hand, that's you know, it's powerful. On the other hand, that never comes back. It kind of just gets left. You know,
it was to illustrate that, you know, she has more fight in her than Finn does, and he has to discover that fight, right? But like, it's not. I also thought that was like a little too much for very little payoff.
Right. And the other thing is that There's a slight implausibility towards the end. Again, this is a Gwen comment, that she calls the cops. They don't believe her. They don't believe that she's having these visions. They want to know why she knows about the black balloons that were found at the scene. Nothing was ever published. Nothing was ever reported.
And then suddenly she calls them and she's like, "Hey, I've had a dream," and they're all like, "Oh, let's get the entire force behind this." I've had a dream.
The bad guys are in there.
Could you imagine?
Yes.
That was the.
But they believe her, and they all come in force. There's 4 or 5 police cars.
That's a movie that I want to do. The Last Action Hero.
Yes.
Maybe that's one we could do a live watch too.
Maybe that's one of the ones that I'd be like cracking up all the way through.
Yeah, exactly.
But in general, I thought that the pacing was very good, and I thought that the tension was well racked up, and we talked about this yesterday, that you said that you wouldn't watch this again because you don't tend to revisit horror films.
I was thinking about it. The horror film that I have revisited the most in the last few years is probably It Chapter 1, and I haven't seen Chapter 2 since we watched it in the cinema because I didn't think it was as good as Chapter 1.
No, I think the de-aging kind of really buggered up a lot of that.
It wasn't just the de-aging, it was also the characterization of Pennywise, that he's a lot more sort of, very Winnie the Pooh-y in the second one.
Yeah, he kind of goes like, "Hello,
right?
Hello, balloon."
And he's not as scary, he's not used to as good effect in the second movie as he is in the first one. I really think they could have just left it at Chapter 1 and it would have been great.
They could have done. They could have done it, but I think it probably would have been better if they'd had that momentum and shot. And obviously they weren't going to do this because they weren't sure if it was going to be successful, but I think they should have shot 1 and 2 back to back.
Yeah.
Because also the kids grew up.
I also think, if they were going to do some of the stuff where they're showing it coming from outer space and landing in the sort of, pre-existing Derry, whatever it was, you're going to disagree with me, but they could have done the sort of, mind battle, the circle of Chud, the proper thing. They could have done it, Johnny. There are visuals there that they could have translated to the screen.
Yeah,
let me do it, and I will do it right. No, I'm joking. But, there are some things there that could really have worked, and James McAvoy definitely could have pulled it off. And it just didn't end up working. The way that he turns into a spider. This isn't about, the movie.
The Black Phone. But there is a connection. We'll get there in Trivia Corner. There's a couple of connections. But
my point is that I've revisited It Chapter 1. I don't tend to revisit horror movies or horror games because of the dark places that they take me to. I don't have the inclination to go back after I've experienced it once.
So I love collecting these movies. I have a whole Blumhouse collection. The A24 ones I don't have so much of because they are much more disturbing. I would like to buy up Hereditary and Midsommar. They are some of them, two of the most disturbing movies I've ever seen.
Right, I have no inclination to even watch them after you've described them.
But they're so good, though. They're really, really well done. Anyway, so I plan to buy The Black Phone on 4K. I think that it's a very dark film, and I think a lot of the sort of the darkness, the blacks, the shadow detail were kind of ruined by the blue LED lights on the stairs that are really bright and sort of shine on the screen. I'm quite excited to see that again in a few months' time, and it's I thought it was a very intense, atmospheric, and a very well done adaptation of Joe Hill's short story. One of the best. I would definitely watch this again. Would you like to go to Trivia Corner?
Yes.
Okay, well, here we are. It's Trivia Corner. This movie was the reason Scott Derrickson didn't direct Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Okay. So
there were creative differences between him and Marvel. But I think, to be honest, having just seen this movie, the right people got the right jobs. Sam Raimi was perfect for Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness, and Scott Derrickson should not have missed out on directing this.
Absolutely.
In June 2022, Derrickson said that Joe Hill had pitched him a wonderful idea for a sequel that he would do if the first film was successful. I trust in Joe Hill, so when he says he's got a wonderful idea, I would, But the grabber's dead, and I would think that the grabber is the main character of like the draw of this. He's on the poster, you know. It's like
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you know, you could do the continuing adventures of
Finn and
Finn. You could also have the grabber be like you know, a voice on the phone kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be creepy.
You know, that he's like kind of visiting Finn from the great beyond. But anyway, I would be in the queue for that one.
Okay.
Most of the short story makes up the film. They expanded it. They added more victims. But they made one change, which is that the grabber is now a magician instead of a clown.
Interesting.
Let's let that sink in for a second. Why would they change that, I wonder?
Well, obviously.
Yeah. But Joe Hill has stated that he wasn't really a fan of it. He read it like once, I think, a long time ago.
He read his dad's book and didn't like it.
I'm not sure that he didn't like it, but I don't think that he necessarily had that on the mind when he was writing the short story for this. I think in general he wanted to sort of come in clean to writing things.
By the way, I love it, like the book.
Yeah. It's a great book. But the idea was that Hill was basing the grabber on John Wayne Gacy, who was a clown.
Yeah.
So that was where that came from. But anyway, they changed it to a magician, and he says, "Do you want to see a magic trick?" And you know that's how he gets him to sort of go into the thing. I kind of, you know, I sort of you know, that Gwen does say to Finney at some point in the movie that there are black balloons, and I thought that when Finn saw the black balloons, he should have pegged it in the other direction.
Exactly.
But he doesn't.
Are those black balloons in there? Oh shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Not are those black balloons in there? Hey, do you want to see a magic trick? Sure.
Yeah. No, but the black balloons thing came after the magic trick.
Whatever. It doesn't matter. The whole thing should have black van run away.
Yeah. But anyway, so the grabber lures in his victims with the van, and he like his whole thing was he does like a sort of a pratfall, and he drops all of his groceries, and the eggs break and all that kind of stuff. And, oh, what a, you know, silly
goof.
Yeah, what a silly sod I am kind of thing. It's the same thing that Ted Bundy was used to do to lure his victims into the van. And the other thing was that Jeffrey Dahmer also recaptured an escaped victim, which is the same as what happens with Finn in this movie. And John Wayne Gacy used a belt.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of inspiration from real life serial killers here.
This is horrific.
There's also an It connection that I believe is a visual cue that was probably put in by Scott Derrickson, which is Gwen riding her bike in the rain in a yellow Mac.
Oh yeah, I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, so there you go.
I thought there was a Shining sort of movie nod.
Yeah,
where it cuts very quickly to the two girls, right?
Which two girls?
The twins, in The Shining.
Yeah,
yeah. And so she's like riding down the street, and then it suddenly very quickly cuts to the dead kid standing in front of her. That's a kind of Shining reference.
That also made me.
So 4 jumps, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, I guess so. No, but that wasn't. That was like that was more of one of those like inward jumps. It wasn't Jesus Christ. Anyway, so that's Trivia Corner. Trivia Corner. Well, that's all I've got.
That's all I've got as well.
I think that was a very interesting discussion.
Yeah, I think so as well.
And I think that you know, it being a great movie, it had a few flaws here and there, but what movie doesn't? But I thought in general it was brilliant, and I really enjoyed it. But I also thought that it was interesting the kinds of things that it brought up, the kinds of discussion topics that it brought up here.
Yeah, I'm glad that we went. I came home. I was not in the right mind space to see this film. I'd had a very, very bad day, and you know,
so would I actually. That wasn't fun.
I was in a very terrible headspace, and I came home in an even worse headspace for having experienced that. But I woke up this morning thinking about it, and I was like, that was a really good film, and I'm glad that we went to go see it and whatever.
Yeah.
And I would definitely recommend it to a friend.
I would recommend it to a friend as well. However, I don't really know anybody who watches horror movies.
Me neither. I'd recommend it to you then.
No,
I don't need to.
Yeah. Well, that was our episode. Thank you for tuning in. Ewan, you don't need to make the lightsaber sounds. Anyway, catch you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.
What's our seat number?